Welcome, you're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. Ukrainian delegation in the Parliamentary Assembly of Europe has announced it's departed the session in protest of the return of Russia at the table of the Council. Earlier, PACE has adopted a resolution that reinstates Russia's right to vote and to participate in sessions and committee meetings. These rights were restricted in 2014 over the illegal annexation of Crimea and violation of the Statute of the Council of Europe. To add to the controversy, Russia nominated MP Leonid Slutsky for the position of vice president at PACE. To discuss this and other international agenda, we welcome to our studio today Maksym Yakovlyev. He's the director of the School for Policy Analysis at the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy National University. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, and thank you for inviting.
So first of all, let's talk about the controversial decision of the PACE. The delegates were negotiating or discussing this decision for 9 hours before announcing it and before actually taking it. It happened overnight, and it was a real shock for a lot of people. What's your stance on this?
Well, to describe it with using only two words, I would say it's a dirty shame, both for the tradition of European democracy, for the rule of law, and other things that are very important. And actually, this structure or organization, as many other European structures, were created in order to ensure that the human rights are not violated, that the Europe really works together on the principles of democracy and many other things that were actually violated by this decision. And I think it is rather symbolic that the decision was taken overnight, because when people gather overnight, it's not necessary that one has to be a conspiracy theorist, but it really is a cause for concern, because if money rule the world and not the values, so in Ukrainian we play with the words because the value actually and the price is almost the same word by its root. So it's really interesting to see how the situation will progress, because it means that any country, even within the European subcontinent, and we have to admit that many things that the world has now is actually a European invention, like human rights, for example. If they are violated because a country and its money are so important that the country can be brought back without any sanction, actually. So it is really a cause for concern, and to repeat my statement, I think it is a dirty shame.
Okay, well, the decision of the PACE to reinstate Russia at the table of the Council has already been called the one that is going to change the whole PACE sanction mechanism. Now, what's the new version of the mechanism now, since Russia is back at the table?
I know. You think if we think about it in a more global terms, or philosophically on a more global, abstract level, then the main question is, what is the idea behind any type of punishment? So any type of punishment is there to actually punish for an action, so that the person, organization, or a country that commits a crime actually pays for this crime and tries to reverse the situation, to reconcile, to do something good, to bring about something good. Secondly, any punishment is done in order to deter others from committing similar crimes. So if the mechanism is changed totally, then, because discussing new mechanisms, I would need some more time to go into the details, but on a more global abstract level, if no sanctions are imposed on somebody who commits crimes, and this person, organization, or a country has still the right to participate fully in any type of organization or assembly, then it is a very bad sign. And I think that the new sanction mechanism, from my opinion, actually undermines the whole idea of the possibility of punishing for committing crimes on international scale, because annexing a territory of another country on the European subcontinent is definitely a crime. Instigating a war and supporting a war with its military troops and actually having a hybrid war with Ukraine is also a crime, definitely a crime. Capturing sailors in international waters is actually a crime. And if you change the mechanism so that nobody bears responsibility and there are no ways to impose sanctions to punish the one who commits the crimes, then it is a very bad situation.
Can this change the whole working process of the Assembly?
We'll see. It's difficult to forecast, but it will definitely change the situation, because if we follow now the Russian media, who actually instigate a lot of propaganda, they're celebrating this as their victory. and they're putting the victory saying that they now claim that Russia did nothing wrong, actually. And imagine saying that annexing another country's territory, all the things.
It's not wrong.
It is definitely wrong, but you see, if they say, but we are back. So one explanation is that Europe or European countries actually pardoned Russia for its crimes and atrocities, which is very wrong. So we will see, because it's difficult to forecast, any mechanism is seen in action. So we will see how it works. But definitely this organization lost a lot of its potential to actually impose democracy, to strengthen democracy. I don't understand that imposing democracy sounds bad as an idea, but democracy needs support. It's something that we really need to invest a lot in. And I think there's also a crisis of European idealism, because explaining that if somebody behaves badly, you put this person on the table with you, discuss, drink tea, have a very lovely conversation, and that's this person or a country would release imprisoned sailors, would withdraw its troops, would allow international observers, peacekeepers to come to Donbass. This is not happening. This is not the things work with Russia. And it is a dirty shame and a great pity that our European partners, especially Germany and France, don't have this understanding that things actually work otherwise and other ways with Russia.
President Zelensky also stated that he was deeply disappointed with the fact that our European partners did not manage to hear what Ukraine tried to explain. Anyway, about the situation and about the dirty shame of the decision of the Peace Assembly, let's hear what Ukrainian Foreign Minister Pavel Klimkin had to say about it.
If PACE confirms the rights of the Russian delegation, I would suggest the Verkhovna Rada recall the invitation for PACE to participate in the monitoring of our parliamentary election, because PACE with Russian deputies and PACE without them, as they say in Odessa, are two big differences. And in the end, who are these people to teach us democracy after they allow the Russian Federation to return to PACE?
So basically, Ukraine may actually not let PACE participate in the parliamentary elections, which, in your opinion, would be a right or wrong decision?
It would be a difficult decision. First, we need international observers to prove that Ukrainian elections are democratic and open, and transparent, and that they correspond to all the rules and regulations. But on the other hand, let's just talk about good example are journalists, because this is a professional. For example, you can say that somebody is a professional journalist, which means that his or her actions, that they have to be not only transparent in the actions, but they should be allowed to come to ask people to participate. But if we watch and observe how Russian journalists behave, like Ms. Skabeyeva, for example, or Kiselov in Russia, and how they behave, this is not the ethics of a professional journalist.
Absolutely not.
The same might be with observers. Imagine a person like Skabeyeva, who is a PACE international observer at any polling station in Ukraine during elections. That causes, and that is a cause for concern, because this is how Russia uses democratic mechanisms actually to instigate and orchestrate atrocities and very bad things, actually. So my concern is if via PACE delegations of international observers, we might have people, as I already mentioned, who would come to Ukraine claiming to be observers to check if our elections are transparent and democratic, but at the end or in real life situations, they would cause a lot of concerns, troubles, and things like that. So I'm saying that I know that there are many oppositional journalists in Russia who are really working in harsh conditions, but we have to admit that we might have some troublemakers, not real observers.
That makes total sense. Now, let's talk a little about the reasons why PACE actually reinstated Russia. We know that when Russia was suspended in 2014 after the illegal annexation of Crimea and numerous violations of human rights, Russia stopped paying the member fees, and that is approximately 7 million euros. Now, is money the reason the PACE decided to reinstate the country
If money is the reason, then I'm happy. Why? Maybe I'm going to be a bit brutal, but if money is the reason, it is good, because we say that these people, person, organization, anything, they're just greedy. They openly say that we need money.
But doesn't that mean that the country that has money can get away with any kind of crime or atrocity?
That's the second question. But then it's open. Like we say that Russia is a rich country, comparably, okay, but a rich country, so they can buy their way out. And if you're working with greedy people, you and me, we at least know how to build our strategy with them. The worst thing would be if we're dealing with hypocrites who say that we support values, we support democracy, and we want Russia to be back to pace, just in order to, not just, but in order to protect the rights of Russian citizens and things like that. But in reality, they are like, just discarding the rights of Ukrainian citizens and many Ukrainians who are political hostages in Russia, and Crimean Tatars, and the people who are living in harsh conditions in Donbass because of the Russian war against Ukraine. Then we have to deal with hypocrites, and it is much worse than working or dealing with greedy people.
Okay, how do we figure out which variant are we dealing with?
Ukraine. Okay, good question. We need to, as a university instructor and associate professor, it is all about developing a very good test to test for that and check to see. As with answering your interesting question with the mechanism, we have to see, watch, and observe. But during this process, as countries who joined, the 6 countries who joined in this a special minority report, so to say, who are against this decision, we have to constantly stress our position. That this is wrong. We have to now discuss how we're going to deal with this organization in the future, but we have to push our agenda through, and we have to wait and see. But waiting, I always say, waiting is not an activity. You just sit back and relax. During this process of expectations, our delegation and our newly elected president, I think he has to be more engaged into international affairs, which is, by the way, his realm of responsibilities. So we have to wait, but as with any managerial situation, we have to be prepared for both scenarios, for greedy people and for the hypocrites.
Speaking of the newly elected president and his external affairs and his responsibilities, let's talk about the Zelensky's meeting with Trump and Putin's meeting with Trump. Now, that has happened before. I mean, I don't mean with President Zelensky, but Putin has already met Trump a lot of times, and then Poroshenko already met Trump. What's going to be different this time?
I think we are talking about G20 meeting in Osaka, in Japan. Of course, the main topic on the agenda, the international observers say, is the ongoing trade war between China and the United States. And many observers say that, unfortunately, we do not see a peaceful agreement coming. So there might be negotiations, but it is a very difficult situation. It might be that some observers say that Trump might use Russia, or use Russia as an ally within the sanctions, though this history with the sanctions against, his story about sanctions against Iran might be the case in this agenda, because Russia's position is a bit different. We know that the Indian Prime Minister already spoke to the Japanese Prime Minister. They're also discussing economy, and we know that Asia is important. We have to understand that if Putin wants Russia to be the main adversary, or the main, so to speak, enemy of the United States, it's not that, because the main competitor for the United States is definitely China. Always. And Russia is lagging behind. We cannot have the Soviet bipolar world back. So this is impossible. Well, for the meeting with Trump, I think Trump is interested more or less in Ukrainian affairs to a different degree, but definitely using Ukraine in his negotiations with Russia, we have to admit. And we are happy as Ukrainians. We're in a very lucky situation that both main political parties in the United States, with this system with 2 parties and the United States, that they both support a stronger American position against Russia, which is something we can make advantage of, and I hope that will be possible. So to sum up, Chinese-American trade war ongoing is a very difficult situation. Russia might be an ally for the United States, because this is the idea of Trump's administration, as far as I can see it, in imposing more sanctions on Iran, because this is another story. And we are happy that the American political leads, they have this common understanding that pressure against Russia is important for the United States and not to lessen sanctions, and I like the American position that supports us. But we have to admit that, unfortunately, like with the European partners, there is not enough understanding that Russia poses a threat constantly, and we're not sure how the situation might develop.
All right, and for the last question, what's the forecast, or what should we expect out of the Trump-Zelensky meeting?
First, I would like Trump to see our newly elected president, to make his guess. I think the 2 people share many things in common, especially from the media realm.
Oh, you do?
I think so, yes. They have a different sense of humor, I would say. But, well, symbolic, it is always important that the people meet, because it has a very big importance. It is difficult to make a forecast what would they agree on, but we have to see that Trump's position hasn't changed in terms of supporting Ukraine in our war against Russia. I would like to see Mr. Zelensky, our new president, supports the political course or strategy of the previous government and the previous president. The government has to change because we have the upcoming presidential elections. That I would like that the course that we choose, like, fighting Russia, fighting war, protecting our territories, fighting for the unification, getting back all Ukrainian territories, and American support, military support. If that topic pops up, military support and more Russian support for Ukraine, that would be great.
Well, hopefully this is how it's going to go.
Hopefully,
thank you.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for inviting.
That was Maksym Yakovlyev. He's the director of the School for Policy Analysis at the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy National University. Thank you so much for watching Head to Head. Stay tuned with UATV for more.